this evening. I'd like to ask Council Vice President if you would go ahead and read the Open Public Meeting Act statement.
This meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Law. This meeting of July 16, 2019 was included in a notice sent to the newspapers of record and posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and has remained continuously posted as required notices under the statute. In addition, a copy of this notice has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the municipal attorney.
Excellent. If we can go ahead and stand for the invocation of the flag salute, please.
Lord, bless our community, bless our seniors, bless our children. Especially into the summer months, please keep an eye on everyone, because everyone does need special attention during these high heat, especially the coming week.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call.
Council President Phillipsburg.
Here.
Council Vice President McBain.
Here.
Councilman Davis.
Here.
Councilwoman DeGirolamo. Here. Councilman Little.
Here.
Okay. So we do have two items, I guess. Is James Moscow, is he expecting us immediately? Vic?
No, we can call in, but I can cover for him. He filled me in on what's going on.
Oh, he did? So we can have the executive after the discussion?
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move the Phillipsburg Police Department above the executive session for this time being. We will go ahead and move forward. See Chief Stetner and Brad. Patrolman? Is it Patrolman Kisselbach?
Yeah.
Sergeant Kisselbach? Captain Kisselbach?
Not even close.
No? All right. Thank you for coming this evening. For the record, we have Robert Merlo, the CFO, a representative from Swisher, Suffolk County. First name? Eric. Fire Chief Richard Hay, Phillipsburg Police Chief Robert Stetner, Patrolman Brad Kisselbach. First name again, sir?
Brian Morris.
Brian Morris from Phoenix, and Lisa Gorab, who's our bond counsel. Okay. To go ahead and begin the discussion, I think we all know why we're here, right? We're here because you need to be moved. We're here because the council is under instruction by the state that we need to find you a new home within 60 days. So, let's talk.
Yeah, Councilman, this is a matter of order. Should we open this up to comments on the agenda prior to having the discussion?
No, I don't see why.
Just on to, typically, since this is an agenda item, we would allow the public to provide their comments prior to any action possibly being taken. Would you foresee any action being taken as a function of this discussion?
No.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so I did some work. I shared it with Chief Stetner, I shared it with council. I believe I shared it with CFO Merlo, who then reached out to bond counsel as well, and Phoenix advisors. You gentlemen, you had the numbers.
Yeah.
Correct? Okay, so I understand that I may not be entirely correct, so we can start there, right? We had this conversation.
Can I get out my correction?
Yes, please, please.
I don't know if I made enough for everybody, so we can counsel and then we can all split it here.
By the way, before we even get really into it, I just want to state that I'd like everyone to remain cordial. There will be no screaming or yelling out from the crowd, clapping and booing. We will not talk over each other. The panel will not talk over each other, and we will remain respectful at all times. Okay. Yes. So, Chief, you are correct. The armory product, as we discussed, it already entailed the $250,000 for estimated equipment relocation costs. So we would be removing that. $4 million. That's with, and you took out the 2.5 million.
Anything to do with the armory, temporary relocation, we wouldn't account for it. We were going there. Because by the time you put trailers up, you can have the armory. By their time frame, well, Scott's.
Okay.
That's what that's based on.
Okay. But you left the $250,000.
I didn't, to be honest with you, I didn't know what that meant until you explained it to me tonight, and actually I had this done before then.
Right, so
So
that
the
was,
250, I mean, yeah, I guess that could be taken off,
okay, so that
wherever
would,
the armory involved, so, I mean,
that would come
you
down.
explained it to me, I didn't realize that, I thought that had to do with something else.
Right, when we had met Monday, I had no idea that our town engineer had factored in the $250,000 relocation cost for the equipment to be moved from Corliss Avenue to the Armory building inside that project. So, apologize, I have to use my calculator here. So on a project of $3,800,000, I know I'm putting our Phoenix advisors on the, our impact was $57.23 for every $100,000 of assessed value. That was our tax impact. How much does that reduce if we were to go from 6.5 to 4,050,000? Is it cheap?
Well, it's a little bit less than $10 for every 1 million. I can do the math.
So it'd be about $37, and about $37.23.
Somewhere in that ballpark, yeah. 35 to 40.
All right. So, as I had notated, if we proceeded with the Corliss project, just an overview, we'd be moving 4 departments, $6.5 million with a $250,000 estimated equipment relocation cost. Temporary relocation cost would be an estimated $2.5 million for the trailers. However, that could come down if the mayor were to take $500,000 to $1 million, retrofit the administrative portion of the armory. Then we still have to discuss, Chief, we still have to discuss what we're going to do with regard to prisoners and stuff like that, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. That project came to a subtotal of $9,250,000 and with a tax impact of $80.73 for every $100,000 of assessed value. We just discussed the Army project. If we did both projects together, it was 8.3. By the way, these estimated building costs were the costs provided to us by the town engineer. That's the cost that we have to go on. So I do understand that they are approximate. I also understand what happened there with the armory as well. So we could be looking at a higher price, probably not lower. Both projects together would split the departments either 2-2 or 3-1, $250,000 still for relocation costs. If council would deem fit to move under the recommendation to move the equipment to the DPW building, and it wouldn't have to be moved again. Is that correct, Chief?
Green equipment, no.
We'd still have to allocate the $2.5 million. I don't see another way to get around this because, again, you have to be out within 60 days. So we'd still have to find some type of temporary housing. At $11,050,000, that was $96.52 for every $100,000 of assessed value. Keep in mind that this is just for these projects. This is not the tax impact on the taxpayers with regard to our budget. So that's on top of whatever we would come up with for next year's budget and the year following. If we were to move with the Corliss Avenue project, the town would no longer pay the $22,000 per year for the Alpha Court costs and the estimated $60,000 per year for utility costs for Freeman School. Our lease on Freeman School, one of the factors that we've taken into account, including the municipal employees, is up on September 1st, 2020. We've also taken a look at, upon completion of the Armory project, should we go solely with that project, we are still, and I don't believe this is true, Ms. Garb, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we can't bond the $1.7 million for remediation costs for the Corliss Avenue building.
Remediation costs are for what specifically?
So that would be abatement to remove the mold and asbestos from the building. So we would not be able to bond for that.
You can. That's an improvement to a real property. You can bond for that. Just
Even
not-
if we're not going to use the building.
Yes, you own the building and you can improve the building, yes.
That's a plus. Thank you. All right. I believe everything else we've already gone over. I do understand the police department's preference is the armory. Some members of council feel the cordless project is best. I think what we need to do is take a look at practicality and cost feasibility. So I'm going to turn it over while I review the numbers from Chief Stetner. Would you like to address us?
I would like to address the second page,
Yes.
where we talk about the possibility of going to Heckman Street as a complete complex.
Yes.
And I put some numbers there. The May 16th numbers, that's what was provided by Stan. Engineer Schreck, sorry about that.
It's okay.
I think we were all provided with them at the time.
Yes.
We had an executive session at night, and he came back at $6,080,000 for everybody to move over to the Armory. That would be putting in an admin building in the back there in the grass. I added to that in the second column there because his numbers reflected what we went out to bid for with the Armory the first time around, and we know they came in $800,000 over. So I added the $800,000 in there, so we're trying to be as clear as possible. So that would get us at 6.85, but I guess we could have taken the 250,000 out for relocation cost, that part, which as I mentioned earlier, until I spoke to you earlier this evening, I wasn't sure what that meant. So that would be 6.6.
So we're looking at approximately about $79 then for tax impact, would that be correct?
No, well, 6.5 was 57, so.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong column. So it'd be 50.
$10 per ton.
$10 per ton. Yeah.
Yeah, so about 60.
And that's with both. That's with the complex.
And that's everybody together.
And we'd still have to add the 1.7 million on a bond, so the tax impact then would be about $70.
It would come out to exactly what you have in column 3.
Correct.
Which would be that 83.50 a week. So we have two numbers there that are very comparable.
It's true. Okay. Is there anything else? Not right now. Okay. Is there anybody, Councilman Lutz, do you have?
No, not right now.
Okay. Councilman Davis?
Sure, I have a few things. One, has this document been provided to everyone in attendance this evening?
I sent it to the police chief, the police lieutenant, and council.
My document has, if that's what
So, I mean, to the general public, because my first concern is that I feel that we've been back and forth when these were originally published in regard to some of the previous projects. We admonished the administration for releasing these as being confidential. Now we're doing it in open session. Are we impairing our ability to negotiate on bids by releasing these numbers?
No.
I mean, we're discussing them in open session right now, right? So,
Right, so we're discussing them in open session. I believe we're under an emergent circumstance with a 60-day time frame of removing everything.
my second question is, what tool was used to provide the projected cost for the cordless project that we find in the first column? So the 6.5 million, how did we arrive at that number? Because I think we only have a 30% projected
Correct.
transfer.
That was provided by Engineer Schreck.
Do we know the methodology that was used to arrive at that number?
No.
I'm extremely skeptical to take that at its face because we've been burned before by using an estimated number. I don't think that we can truly rely on estimates until we have a full gathering of the requirements. And again, bid-ready specifications that have contractors who are ready to work on the work. I don't think it's fair really to compare the Armory projected cost right now and the cordless project projected cost because the Armory project had actual bids from real contractors ready to do the work, where we still don't even have the final requirements for the cordless project. And I don't think that we can have a conversation about the final location of all the staff until we have those numbers in hand.
So Councilman Davis, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
In November of 2017, you had requested bid-ready specifications for the Cordless Avenue project. Did you receive those bid-ready?
I'm still yes, it's been what, almost 2 years now?
Okay. Did you try and follow up at all? And I'm not blaming you, Councilman, I'm just asking.
I believe I asked for them again
You
at
did?
the end of last year.
Okay.
And my other concern is just comparing it to similar projects in higher cost areas. Warren Township, New Jersey completed a 25,000 square foot building that was 2 stories with similar finish, including their police department, for a total cost of just under $8 million, I believe. So I'm wondering if maybe, and they utilized an architecture firm, maybe we should consider having an architecture firm finish out the project in terms of getting those bid-ready specifications and utilize the expertise of the firm that specializes in designing buildings specifically to see if there's cost savings that we can gather in terms of finding a permanent final location for all staff.
So, no, Councilman?
No,
Did you have a firm in mind?
No, I do not have a firm in mind. I don't know if there's any in Phillipsburg that would be interested, but when I spoke to the the administrator of Warren Township, they leveraged a relationship with an in-town architecture firm. I don't know if we have any that have headquarters here in Phillipsburg that would be willing to take on a project of this magnitude under the emergent circumstances.
Right.
But it seems like they were able to benefit greatly and reduce the tax burden of their taxpayers using that relationship.
Okay.
Just finally, I don't have a preference for which project is the best. I just don't think that, again, in our current situation, and I'm not sure 100% why, we don't have the full set of information that has been requested in order to make the most informed decision that's most responsible for the taxpayers.
Correct. Does anybody have any questions for Councilman Davis? Councilwoman DeGirolamo, do you have any?
So I did quite a bit of research through RS Means, which is the tool I use when I estimate for construction. According to that data, approximately for every 10,000 residents, there's about 20 staff through the police department, according to the national average. 20 is actually a little on the high side. And according to that data, it also tells me about 354 square feet are needed per officer. So I'm guessing you need about 15,000 square feet. Is that approximately what we're looking at?
I don't know the exact square footage.
So the existing Corliss Avenue building is 18,000 square foot per floor. I believe the Armory was giving you more space than you had, which I believe is 8,000 square feet and going to 12?
I would say that the Armory gave us more space when you included the middle, which we weren't really using. We were kind of limiting, we were going down in office size, but the layout was more functional, so we didn't have as much dead area as we did before. That'd be a better way to look at it.
So square footage is one piece, need is another piece. Now I believe, because looking at these numbers, initially I'm looking at it and the two numbers just didn't add up to me, which is what was throwing me, because 6.5 and 3.8 certainly doesn't equal 8.3. I assume 6.5 was because we were putting everybody in one building. You're breaking up to get to 8.3, the extra space that was being allocated in Corliss, so that was reducing the price of Corliss to about 4.5
4.5.
from the original estimate
Correct.
that was put together that did not include the police going to that building.
That's true.
So we were originally looking at 8.3, so we took a drastic reduction by going to 6.5. So I can tell you from just ballpark construction figures, new construction is extremely, extremely, extremely high right now, to the tune of 46% higher than it was over a year and a half ago on new construction. So putting a second building at the Armory is just not feasible. In addition to the extra operational costs, the long-term feasibility for the taxpayers and what it's going to cost to fuel two buildings in the town at $5,000, at $60,000 a year just in electricity is a concern, and none of that happens to be factored in here. It's a life cycle cost from my perspective. Number two, it's about $2 million cheaper to retrofit right now than do new construction on almost anything. And that's just flat out fact. Just flat out fact, it's about $2 million is what it comes down to. You know, we made a decision what to do permanently. Honestly, I'm more concerned with what we're doing in the next 60 days, because when we asked at budget time how we were going to pay to get everybody moved and would we be able to do it for this, nobody really came forward, because we said if we needed $2.5 million, that was the point in time we should have been doing it. And now we're being told we need $2.5 million. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we need to find it in 60 days. No, we need to do it in 20 days, because they need to be out of there in actually, according to what we received, they needed to be out of there in 2017, November. So we're 2 years behind. And that had nothing to do with anything else. But suffice to say, we need a decision in the next 10 days where they're going in 60 days. The rest of this is, we'll figure out, but chief concern is where they're going to be in 60 days and how we're going to pay for it. Chief Hay has given a proposal, and that money's easily there. The mayor could do it tomorrow. No qualm. Money's there. It could happen tomorrow as far as I'm concerned. But how are we getting them moved in the next 60 days? That's my biggest concern right now. And I'm not hearing it, because they're not getting into the armory in 60 days.
Right, they wouldn't be able to get in trailers either in 60 days. Just for the record, I believe the lead time on that project was 4 to 6 months.
That's what I believe. So I called 4 real estate agents. So they're all working on this. They came back to a few alternatives, none which I think are probably acceptable, but they would be habitable. You know, I don't know what else I can say. The long-term project, you know, I can only give you my background, and it is in construction. I'm sorry, I do this every day. My paycheck depends on it, so I take it seriously. But my biggest concern right now is where are we putting them in 60 days? I'm not hearing it. Where are we going? All I heard was we don't have enough money, but we don't have costs, we don't have estimates. I asked 2 weeks ago, and we still don't have them.
So I can tell you that when I spoke to the mayor, I don't know if Controlman Amy is here or, and John, okay, Travis was not here either. Okay. Is he here? Is he? Travis. So when we spoke, the mayor had talked about this P3 program. You recall, yes?
Yes.
So the mayor had spoke about the P3 program. He was going down to Trenton to look into one of these firms possibly coming in and purchasing the armory property, at which point in time they would own the property, or we would own the property, but they'd be acting as a landlord. Are you familiar with the P3 program?
Yes.
Okay. So is it a viable solution for you? I'm asking.
It's not going to help in
Are you familiar with
60
the-
days. That's the only concern I'm thinking about right now is 60 days. What's my 60-day timeline? Because it's not going to help in 60 days. Yes, we would pay, essentially, we would pay rent to whoever has that P3 ownership over the course of the next 30 years.
Would that be on top of the tax impact, right? Because
It would be on top of any tax impact. It would, you know, it takes brick and mortar out of our budget, but we're paying it in rent.
Does that hurt our bond rating?
And if they take ownership of the building, Bob, you may know better, does that become rateable?
I actually don't know the answer to that. That's a good question. If we use the P3 program.
They get considered to be because we're paying them, but you don't succeed it, so. Because I know all the projects that have done parking garages, they've claimed ownership, and it's strictly been paid rent. They had the option of buying out at the end, based on the depreciation amount and profit. They do it for a reason. They do it because they profit in the end. So a lot of the projects have been things like parking garages that are revenue producing so that somebody's getting their money back. A project like this is not revenue producing. So unlike an ideal situation, you know, personally, would be the sewer plant. If you want to do something and you need all that infrastructure upgrades, a P3 might be appropriate in the sewer situation because that's a revenue producing stream that would fund itself and pay for it in the long term. But But again, I'm worried about 60 days.
No, I know, I am too. We're looking at a lot of money in fines if we do not have the police department moved within a 60-day time frame. So 60-day time frame realistically for the police department. We have to move the equipment. How long does that take? To move the equipment, to relocate the equipment,
What which equipment is in charge?
the radio equipment?
To move that, how long does it do that? I don't know that answer.
We would need to move that in a temporary relocation, or could we leave it where it's at?
Okay, it can stay where it's at for now, but I would say, my personal opinion, we should consider moving it because the condition of that radio is very poor.
Right.
The ceiling tiles replaced there last week, when the gentleman was out, and you have water coming in there. I had the mayor down there, the day after our meeting, the Freeman showed me the situation. And I invite council to come over, I can show you the problem. We have water constantly pouring in there. I made engineer aware of it several times. It's the point, it's critical. Because we have several pieces of equipment down there, especially with the link radios of us in Warren County. There's a bank of computers and radios on one side. Fortunately, they're moved. If that gets wet, you're looking at $100,000 immediately. How much insurance will cover it? We'll be off the air. It's that severe.
Yes.
I guess the ultimate question we have is, do we have a solid dollar amount for the capital improvements that would be required to any space to have functional OEM and police department in a generic space? Do we know what it would cost to have those improvements done? Yeah, for either, because I assume that would be the same cost because those are not.
No, I guess my question, my counter question to that, Councilman, would be if we do go out, do we have to go to bid on these projects?
Yes. The public projects.
In emergency situations, we don't have to bid, but I don't know, based on the timeline, this constitutes an emergency situation.
No, not for.
Yeah. What's that, yeah?
So it would constitute as being an emergency,
Right.
because we do since, okay.
So, but I lack the expertise or knowledge to specify that, and so I think we definitively need that because no matter where we go, we have to, we're gonna have to add those capital improvements to any property, one that we own or rent or what it is.
Council President?
Yes.
Real quick.
Yes.
Would it help, I mean, we all know I advocate for the armory here. We have bids that came back on the armory, and I'm not saying accept those bids. Stan had talked, engineer.
That's fine, you understand.
Had mentioned before about value engineering. I threw a proposal out to you, we had spoke about it a little bit, about doing a certain portion of the armory, where we could get everybody in there working, and cleaning that part up, fixing that part up, so that there's still something there to market later, if we don't end up there. So instead of paying $2.5 million for relocation, paying X amount of dollars, figure out what that area is, and having them do that. And being that it was bid on already by 3 people, can you just do that portion right now? Is there, I mean, that's a legal question, I don't know the
You
answer.
have to rebid because you rejected.
You have to rebid the whole thing? All right.
Well, you can no, we don't have to rebid the whole thing, you rebid
Just
for a
rebid
smaller
the portion.
You'd have to, yeah, the point is
Send
you'd
it
have
back
to.
out. Modify it and send it back out.
And that's where you would come in.
That would be at Corliss, right?
That would be at the armory
At the
where we
armory.
had
So
rejected the bids.
Currently, the council does not have an ordinance in place to
Correct.
bond for those improvements.
We can amend the current bond ordinance,
can, sure.
But we don't have figures.
right? But we have the figures, but
We do.
we'd have to go back out to bid is what they're saying.
I imagine that the specifications that we did originally for the armory has the necessary improvements, the bare bone improvements included in it, correct?
What I'm speaking to, councilman, is not doing the whole armory. I'm
Yeah,
not saying
that's-
put everything in there. I'm saying do a portion of it. So that we have the office space, we have a place where we can process prisoners, not store prisoners. I'm not talking about cells at this point. I'm talking, I mean, we think that's committing. If we go to, the truth is, if we put cells in, we're committing to that building, and no one has committed to that building. So if you gave us a portion from the back doors where the Board of Education used to go in, up around through the bathrooms, we could work out of there, no problem. We could serve the public, but it has to be redone, because the bathrooms, it's just, I mean, Chief Hay could explain, it's one big shower room. We can't serve the public there. We can't have the public come in. There's no window for Ms. Hoadley to work from and serve the public when they come for reports. It's kind of, that area is a little, so walls have to come down, new walls have to be put up. That's where your asbestos is, the 9x9 tiles. So that all has to be done. So it's just easier to, I mean, Councilman DeGrom, it's probably easier than trying to spackle over all the mess. It's probably easier just to sometimes.
So if we were to go that route, estimated time frame, I know we have to change the bond ordinance, but the bond, and that's going to take 2 readings in 20 days.
Well, we don't have an estimate, we don't have plans for the person we're talking about. It would have to be,
So we technically be looking at 2 separate moves. We'd still have to move you somewhere temporarily within 60 days while we were moving towards this route, if we were taking that route.
because if we have to go to an ordinance, you're talking over 30 days just in readings.
And
That's
then-
not,
What about the money that we have from the Ingersoll property? Could we
transfer?
We could do a transfer and then bond and replace it, could we not?
You can do that if you have, we're talking, cash. If you
Yes.
have Cash, you can expend cash, as long as you have a, ordinance in place. What that will save you is that 20-day estoppel period, but you want to have the ordinance process moving while you do that. You don't want to spend the cash and then say, well, let's do an ordinance now.
Right.
Because we did do an ordinance when we transferred for the mapping.
Yep. But it sounds like we do have those improvements detailed somewhere. We just need to rebid based on just those functions. Is that not correct?
Sounds right to me. I mean, I don't see.
That is correct. We have drawings for that. I mean, he'd have to, meaning the engineer would have to just cut out the portion we would discuss and then go from there.
And what portion of the $2.5 million is the necessary Department of Corrections and OEM requirements, and what's the part is
What I'm speaking of is just getting what would be very basic living space for us. Desks, office space, being able to run the IT in from the state police so we can do all our alcohol tests and our NCIC stuff.
Well, I think
I'm not talking about cells. I mean, one room would be an interview room with a bar in it, and we'd have to sit with them. We'd have to sacrifice that until we figure out the long-term solution.
Right. I'm just thinking in terms of an effort that if we chose the armory and use that as the permanent location versus using a separate location where we have to duplicate the effort in a secondary location, so we can enumerate that cost and figure out, okay, if we go to a temporary location that's not the armory, what are we going to be duplicating when we retrofit Corliss? Because it sounds like some of the equipment's old, and when we do an apples-to-apples comparison, because we want to make sure the improvements we make are sustainable for the next 40 years, as opposed to just putting spackle on something that will only last for the next 5.
What I'm proposing in that, and what I'm saying here is, these would be finished off offices. They would be equipped for any